So I won't speak too long about this. I'm still processing this huge loss, but I thought I'd just share my anecdotes and how I'm feeling, and I think it's how a lot of us are feeling, and maybe try and explain why we're feeling this way. So I logged on about half an hour after the news broke. I went on to Twitter, or X, and I saw that Dragon Ball Z and Akira Toriyama were trending. At first I thought that it was probably something to do with, an announcement, or something to do with Dragon Ball Daima, which Toriyama had been heavily involved with, so that's the first thing that sprang to mind. And then I clicked on the Akira Toriyama hashtag, or the tag that was there, and yeah, it was just right in front of me that he had passed away. And I just stood up, I paced around the house for a little bit, I sat down, I stood up again, paced around. I didn't know what to do. It was so shocking and unbelievable. And I'm still shocked about this. Because at 68 years old, that's still relatively young, especially today. And because he was actively working on new projects, it was so unexpected. And there was no reason to think anything like this would happen. But from losses that I've had personally in the past, sometimes, that's just how it is. That's how it goes. But when it does happen like that, it stings so much more when you are that unprepared for it. And like most fans, I didn't know much about Toriyama. But if you read the manga, at the start of every volume, he would have almost like a diary entry, usually talking about nothing, just something going on in his life. And you sort of got a sense of who he was. He also did some interviews, usually just in print, but you sort of got the impression that he was just this carefree, nice person. He was someone, in my eyes anyway, that didn't take himself too seriously. He didn't take his work that seriously, and I mean that in a good way. For example, as fans, clash about what's canon or what isn't canon and that sort of thing, I could imagine he would just laugh about that, and he wouldn't really think too much of it. And he did seem like someone who enjoyed to laugh. He always came across as someone who was quite humble. He always expressed how grateful he was and how surprised he was at how big, Dragon Ball became. And it didn't appear that he let that fame, I guess, affect him as a person. And you could see that with how private he was in his personal life. You rarely saw him out and about. And when you would see him, like at, maybe a convention or an event, he was always smiling, he always seemed enthusiastic and happy. He just seemed like a genuine, nice person. And he has such a huge body of work, not just Dragon Ball. Dr. Slump, Sandland, the Dragon Quest video game franchise, and that's just a few. He had so much more than that. Of course, for me, Dragon Ball Z is the one thing that just holds a real special place in my heart, as many Toriyama fans would feel the same way. When I was a kid, maybe around 13, 14, I was dealing with things that kids that age probably shouldn't have to deal with. But despite the circumstances, I enjoyed my childhood, and I owe a lot of that to Dragon Ball Z. I became so obsessed with it, and it became a real escape for me. I collected everything that I could, magazines, sticker albums, video games. I went to conventions in New Zealand. Armageddon is what the big one over there is called. And I met Stephanie Nadolny, who voiced Gohan in the series, in the Funimation dub. And she's really great, by the way. My bedroom walls were covered in Dragon Ball posters. And then in my later teens, the original Dragon Ball came on Cartoon Network, and I fell in love with that as well. And then a few years later, I actually got around to reading the manga. And in the last couple of years, I've really gotten back into Dragon Ball, and also learning about Akira Toriyama. And at the end of the day, he was the reason for all of these memories. You know, his ideas and his world building let me escape from sometimes shitty moments in my life as a kid and as an adult. And you know, I have no doubt that so many people out there have the same story. And you just cannot forget the impact that Akira Toriyama has had on the industry at large. How he shaped the manga and anime landscape around the world. He introduced millions of people not just to Dragon Ball, but to anime and manga in general. And he inspired artists to go out and create their own work. The anime landscape, especially in the West, would not be as it is today without Akira Toriyama. So that's all I wanted to say. We will miss you, Akira Toriyama. Thank you and goodbye.